In a world obsessed with speed and glamour, a handful of Victorian engineers built steam locomotives so bizarre that their very existence turned the rules of railroading on their head. These were engines that could lift 6 tons and roll through factories, machines designed for tight spaces where neither cranes nor shunters could work alone. These strange hybrids, neither simply locomotives nor mere cranes, rewrote industrial history. But why did railways need them, and what made them so indispensable yet doomed to obscurity? Unraveling the story of the weirdest steam locomotives ever built means discovering the ingenious problem no other machine could solve until everything changed. In 1872, the North London Railway faced a problem that demanded more than clever scheduling or stronger backs. Inside the echoing halls of their engine works, heavy locomotive parts needed to be lifted, swung, and set in place with precision. At the same time, wagons crowded the rails, waiting to be shunted in and out of cramped bays. Traditional steam cranes were too bulky for these tight interiors, and ordinary shunting engines had no way to lift anything heavier than a coupling chain. The answer, as it turned out, was not to choose between crane or locomotive, but to combine them. The workshop team took an existing 040 tank shunter, a compact workhorse built for short, sharp moves, and rebuilt it into a new configuration. They extended the frame to create a 042 wheel arrangement, adding a trailing axle to support extra weight. Above the rear axle, where coal once piled high in the bunker, a small steam-powered crane appeared. Its boiler supplied the lifting engine as easily as it drove the wheels. With a simple turn of valves and levers, the same machine could nudge a wagon into position or hoist a cast-iron cylinder into the air. There was no fanfare, no grand unveiling, just the quiet satisfaction of a tool that did what nothing else could. This hybrid was not built for speed or distance. Its world was measured in yards, not miles. The crane's reach was modest, but within the boundaries of the engine works, it could lift and move components that would have otherwise required teams of men or the risky dance of repositioning a fixed crane. The trade-off was clear. Less coal storage meant more frequent refueling, but the engine rarely strayed far from the workshop's own coal pile. The added weight and height of the crane limited where it could go, but inside its domain, it was unmatched. No records survive of the individual who first sketched the idea on a scrap of paper or welded the crane's base to the frame. What remains is the outcome, a practical machine born from necessity, not ambition. The North London Railway's 042 crane tank set a template for others who faced the same spatial puzzles, hinting at a future where the line between locomotive and lifting gear would blur even further. Swindon Works, the beating heart of the Great Western Railway, was a place where space was always at a premium and the work never stopped. In 1881, faced with the same relentless congestion that challenged every major railway works, the Great Western Railway took a former broad-gauge tank engine and converted it to standard gauge, then replaced its coal bunker with a steam-powered crane. This 240 crane tank became a fixture in Swindon's crowded sheds, threading between wagons and machinery, lifting boiler shells, wheel sets, and castings that would have overwhelmed any ordinary shunter. The real breakthrough came at the turn of the century. In 1901, Swindon's engineers modified 2 pannier tank engines, Cyclops and Tityrus, fitting each with a robust crane able to lift 6 tons at an 18-foot radius. These were not just workshop novelties, they were true workhorses, built to handle the heaviest jobs the Great Western Railway could throw at them. Cyclops, with its squat boiler and outstretched jib, spent most of its life at Swindon, but was regularly called away for special assignments. At Stafford Road Works in Wolverhampton, it hauled and hoisted parts for new engines. In 1931, Cyclops even made a rare appearance at Paddington Station, where it helped position precast concrete sections during the extension of the platforms, an odd sight among the express engines and bustling passengers, but a reminder of how indispensable these hybrids could be when heavy lifting had to happen in the middle of a live railway. By 1922, another sibling joined the ranks. Hercules was built to the same pattern, and together with Cyclops and Tityrus, the trio formed the backbone of Swindon's heavy-duty fleet. Their cranes could manage loads that would have taken hours with block and tackle, and their compact frames allowed them to slip between the tightest clearances. Yet for all their strength, these engines led quiet, almost invisible lives, shunting wagons one moment, swinging a boiler the next. Their story ended in 1936 when all three were withdrawn and scrapped. No plaques or statues commemorate their service. But for decades, whenever a locomotive needed lifting or a workshop needed clearing, Swindon's crane tanks answered the call. Machines built for a world that demanded both muscle and precision, and that delivered both in a single, strange package. Inventiveness flourished as other builders took up the crane tank challenge, each tailoring the concept to fit their own industrial puzzles. The Great Northern Railway, working with the proven G2 class shunter, chose a more modest approach. Their version carried a smaller crane, just enough for workshop tasks, but nimble and light, weaving through the narrowest corners without overwhelming the rails. Nielsen and Company, known for compact industrial engines, went a step further. To save precious inches on crowded factory floors, they designed engines with cranes mounted concentrically around the funnel. This kept the lifting gear close to the locomotive's center, shrinking the footprint and allowing the engine to squeeze through spaces where even a standard shunter would struggle. Robert Stephenson and Hawthorne's found opportunity in leftovers. When a foreign order was canceled, they pieced together several engines from spare parts, fitting them with fixed hook cranes that could reach out 20 feet. These cranes had no winches, just a simple arm, cleverly shaped to fold over the chimney when not in use, always ready for the next heavy lift. Meanwhile, in Glasgow, Dubbs and Company created what many would recognize as the classic industrial crane tank. A central crane mounted over the boiler, its curved jib swinging safely past both cab and funnel. This design balanced lifting power with stability, making it a favorite in factories and docks across Britain. Each of these builders treated the crane tank not as a one-size-fits-all solution, but as a flexible tool, shaped to the demands of their own industrial landscapes. The result was a patchwork of machines, some squat and sturdy, others tall and agile, all united by a single purpose: to do the jobs that nothing else could. Braking too hard with a heavy load swinging from the jib could turn a simple maneuver into a disaster. In crowded workshops, a sudden stop sent chains clattering and tons of metal lurching sideways, threatening anyone nearby. Crane jibs often stretched well beyond the buffers, putting them at risk of striking passing wagons or scraping against low doorways. Every extra inch of height and weight made these engines more awkward to steer through tight spaces, and with the crane taking up valuable real estate, coal had to be rationed carefully. Yet for short, repetitive jobs, these flaws were tolerated so long as the engine stayed close to its home base and the work remained predictable. Some factories tried to push the design even further, fitting steam-powered generators to supply electromagnets. Suddenly, a crane tank could pluck scrap metal straight from the floor, a trick especially useful in steelworks. But even with these upgrades, the writing was on the wall. By the 1930s, road cranes, faster, more flexible, and safer, began to take over the heavy lifting. The number of working crane tanks dwindled year by year. Most were retired or scrapped before the Second World War, though a handful hung on in the corners of steel plants and dockyards, their paint worn thin by decades of hard use. A few lucky survivors found new roles on heritage railways and in museums. Volunteers and railway enthusiasts stepped in to preserve what industry had left behind, restoring these odd machines to working order or placing them on display. Into the 1960s and even the 1970s, the last operational crane tanks could still be found shunting wagons or demonstrating their lifting tricks for curious visitors. Today, their clanking echoes serve as a reminder of a time when the boundaries between locomotive and crane were as blurry as the steam that once filled the air. Innovation rarely looks elegant in real time. Today, as industries automate and repurpose old machines, crane tank engines remind us that practical solutions often defy expectations. The real legacy is not their odd shape, it is the proof that necessity, not convention, still drives the next breakthrough. Thanks for watching.